Hello, I'm John McAllister with the John McAllister Sports Report. And today I'm excited because an old friend, I did a podcast a couple of years ago with Kevin Katafaris from the Genoa area. Well, Kevin does basketball officiating as well as football. And today I'm going to spend most of the time talking about basketball. Maybe rule changes, and they change a lot. Maybe new things we'll see, limitations we'll see. I have some silly questions for him, but I really also want to cover how you become a basketball official. And Kevin is busy right now because he's in the playoffs football. He's a referee, very good. And he's also into basketball officiating. And they've done both of them for a long time, for sure. Talk to him about that. So if I have questions to ask him, maybe just funny questions, but I'm also excited about that. So if you'll sit back and enjoy my video podcast with a Ohio high school football and basketball official, Kevin Katafaris. Thank you. Okay, like I said earlier in my intro, my guest today is Kevin Katafaris from Genoa, football official. I had him do football, I think, 2 years ago. And he's also a very, very top, high-rated basketball official. Today, we're going to talk more about basketball than football because so many things change every year. And Jerry Snodgrass said, well, the guy you need to talk to is Kevin Katafaris. So they've been friends a long time. And Snod's a very good friend of mine. Kevin, how are you doing today?
Doing well, John. Thank you. Yeah, Jerry's a great guy. So thanks for saying that.
Well, we can stop there. We don't want to blow him up too much. Okay. We're same hometown guys.
Oh, okay.
We're Upper Sandusky
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's talk basketball. But before we do that, basketball officiating, you need a little credibility. How long have you been doing basketball?
Boy, right out of high school. Well, actually, I refereed CYO basketball for a couple of years in high school. This is going to be my 48th year starting up here in a week or so. Yeah.
And state tournaments about every other year?
Yeah, I think I've been to the state tournament 11 or 12 times. First one was in 97 and every 2-3 years in there for quite a long time. Last one was in 22, I think. So yeah.
Does it help that over all the years you're a good official, but does it help with your relationship with coaches then?
Absolutely. Game management is a big part of it, and hopefully gain some respect over the years. And I feel like I do a good job with that. I'm not a huge talker, but I think coaches feel comfortable working with me and my partners and good relationships. Yeah.
So you've been doing it since for a little over 40 years then, right?
Yeah, 48 years. So
48
started
years.
when I was 18, and I'm going to be 65 here in a couple of weeks. So
you're just a kid compared to me.
Yeah.
Age-wise.
Yeah.
Anyway, when I think of basketball officiating and I think of game management, he's passed, but Robbie Lee, I always thought was one of the best, because he had so much, he could talk everything. But he would, an official mad at him and be yelling a little bit. By the time the conference was done, the coach understood. I thought Robbie did a really good job of management with games.
I totally agreed. A great guy. Robbie was a couple things that come to mind now that you mentioned his name is, very charismatic, but very to the point. And so his direct and the way he could just look you in the eye, and he was always so convincing. And but he just had that way about him. I mean, I was always kind of jealous actually, just because of his personality, and just a great guy, but tremendous. Plus he coached. He got it.
I could relate.
Yeah,
like you can. I mean, you just you started. I call it the process, and I wish more young people would do it. I wish they'd start younger and be content with doing JV or not doing CYO basketball, doing junior high basketball to start and learn. I wish, and I don't know if they are. I think everybody wants to be a varsity as soon as they can get their license. Am I wrong on that, or so?
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of right. I'm not saying you're wrong. I mean, some officials are, more patient than others.
Right.
And there's some that are really doing it the right way and taking their time and progressing at the right time. Others, they want to get in a rush and want to move up fast, which I get. And we need. The thing is, there's a need there because the supply is not as good as it used to be. So, you can move up pretty quick.
Right.
But are you ready? I mean, everybody can call traveling and out of bounds, but when you have those crucial game situations, can you handle it? So
that's so true. I'm guilty. I was thinking more football than basketball, but I think both of them apply to just what you said. But well, Kevin, let's talk about how has it changed in the last 20 years? My goodness, it's changed. So you got to know here, I'm old enough to remember when they had the old-fashioned keyhole, the true keyhole. Now, I remember they painted the line. I was pretty young, but I remember in our gym we had the old-fashioned keyhole. We won't go that far back, but in the last 20 years, what changes have you seen during your officiating?
Yeah, teams want to play faster now, which is fine. They run more, shoot more threes. There isn't as much true post play anymore. Sometimes we'll be officiating a game and they're like, there's nobody inside the 3-point line hardly because, that's kind of the way the game's played, that it's outside. There's a lot of rotations and screens and such. So to me, that's the difference. And truthfully, that's the toughest thing, me getting older physically, is those teams run those kids to the corner and you try to beat them down the floor, and boy, you don't want to clip them. No, they're going to clip me because they're pushing me out of the way. But that's what I think. The game's more perimeter oriented than it used to be.
I think calling those screens up on top, that's difficult sometimes too. Are you set? Are you moving? Are you bending your knees out? And speaking of threes, if young people watched the Boston Celtics last night, I don't know. They had more threes than twos, I think. But and ladies too, and women too, I think. Girls, I call them girls in high school, but I think they shooting threes all the time and everything now. Insane. Okay, one of the reasons I brought you on is what changes will people see this fall or this winter? What changes?
Yeah, actually, there's in the rule book. There's quite a few. There's not many that are substantial that you would say. I guess there's probably 3 or 4 that are biggest ones. One is just I think it's a common sense thing that now if before, if you had blood on your uniform, you had to go out of the game. Now, if you can treat it, which they usually just spray something on it, within 20 seconds, you can stay in the game. So,
you can stay in the game. Good.
Yeah, you don't. And so that's one.
Let's stop there a minute, because that's probably important that people aren't going to realize. If they do get to see the blood, but if they can spray and get it off in 20 seconds, they're still in the game then. They don't have to sit out. They don't have to, anything. They can
Yeah.
still play.
Especially at the end of the game, because sometimes they're, one of your better players, you don't want to have them on the bench. So that's one. You can, if you touch the net and doesn't have any effect on the ball, we're just going to play on. That's not a
Oh, is that right?
violation.
That's
So they put in this one's going to be interesting. They put in a flop rule now. The first one's a warning. Second one's a technical foul. So player fakes taking a charge and you just fell to the ground. You can call a flop flop warning. We'll see how it goes. I had a scrimmage last night. I called one, but I've had two other scrimmages and didn't even think about it. So I don't think it'll be a huge deal. Hopefully the coaches are addressing that, and it won't be a major concern, but that's one. And then
I just stopped there a minute on that because I'm interested in this stuff. But if the flop rule, then obviously if it's the same player, right, that gets the second flop, that's the technical
team.
Wait, let's go back over that because that's going to drive fans crazy.
Yeah.
Especially on the second one.
So, yeah, and it's offense and defense. So if you're a shooter and you kick your foot out and you think you're going to get a foul and you don't, and you call that's one. Another example is, like I said earlier, about you fake taking a charge on defense. That's
so player A does that, and then 10 minutes later, another player, not player B, does the same thing. Then it's a technical. Then.
Correct.
Wow. Well, that's good. Good. I think that's going to be really controversial, by the way.
Yeah, it could be. Hopefully we've kind of gotten through that. Because kids obviously they watch TV. And another one is when, they're dribbling up the floor and the defender's kind of right with them and they jerk their head back. That's another example of faking being fouled. So flopping is kind of as a word they want us to use, but faking being fouled is the actual wordage in the rule book.
Okay. And then I think coaches would really emphasize don't do that.
Yeah. Hopefully it's kind of worked, it'll work its way out of the game. So.
Right. Okay. Good. Anything else?
The last one, it's just a common sense thing. So the only other they've put in anything pregame is an administrative technical foul. So let's say a kid would dunk in pregame warmups. Now it's a technical foul, but it's only a team foul. They still will shoot 2 shots and such, but it's not a personal foul, and the coach does not lose a coaching box privilege where they would have in the past. So they call it an administrative technical foul.
So if a kid, now what else would be besides dunking?
Incorrect stuff in the scorebook, things like that. So
right, that's okay. So that's
why to me, it's a common sense thing. So, and then reminder: last year we went to the 5 fouls and 2 shots per quarter, no more 1-on-1. So that was last year, but
that's still on. I mean, they haven't.
Yeah. I think that was a good rule.
Do you?
I do. One thing, talk to some partners and coaches, it just seemed like, and I don't know if it's the game itself or if that had something to do with it, but it seemed like the free throw shooting was not very good last year in general. And I don't know if kids relaxed because they weren't shooting 1-on-1s anymore and didn't concentrate as much, but it seemed like a lot of missed free throws. But
well, that's interesting. Well, that's really good. I can't think of any. The one go back to the net, a player hits the net and doesn't do anything with the ball. I mean, doesn't bother the basketball at all. Then they just let it go.
Yep.
That makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah. Used to be, basket interference on the offense, or if a defense hit it, or if the offense hit it, it would same thing. They'd wipe it off. So, it's a good rule.
That's really good. Okay, let's talk about officiating in pairs. Do you find do you have one or two guys that usually works with you, or how does that work? How does officiating work there?
Yeah, for the most part, I work with Jim Jordan. And I worked together for probably close to 30 years now. I mean, I knew when his kids were babies, and now they're late 20s or something.
Yeah.
So almost 30 years. And then John Huber works with us quite a bit, and then there's some other people that work with us. But I work probably 90% of my games with Jim for sure. Yeah.
Okay. That's important. If you can get, I think if you can get a partner, isn't it? So you know each other pretty well.
Yeah, and
It makes it easy.
it's funny because we kind of pick up on each other, and
Right.
it's great to travel together, and obviously we've become good friends, and just all that together just makes for a better atmosphere. And Jim will pick up stuff that I miss, and I might pick up something that he might miss during a game, and there's no egos there. And if there's something during the game or after the game, we're very open about it. Like, he'll say, "What do you think?" And I said, "Oh, I think you missed it," and
Yeah.
there's no hard feelings. We just
Right.
want to get better.
It's-
And Jim's made me a better official. I mean, just some of the things that he's really good at, and I've, tried to emulate or put into my game, has really helped. So,
It's really good. A couple questions for you. For you, how far can a player go with you until you tee him up?
yeah, I'm pretty patient. I don't give a lot of technicals, but there is a line. And it's hard to say what the line is because it's different. It should be more consistent maybe for officials, but everybody has a different viewpoint. Things that set them off.
Right.
I try not to get emotional, but I do. I admit it, and when I do, it's not good because then you kind of lose your focus and maybe
Right.
make a decision you shouldn't. But they have to be pretty disrespectful. They'd have to. A bad curse word would certainly do it.
Okay.
Certain words, set me off, like horrible or,
Yeah.
things like that would, set me off where you might get a technical. But I try to be patient, and, I'll kind of get in a kid's, go talk to a kid about it. And, if he wants
Right.
to push the line, then
See, I always
suffer
thought that
consequences.
was good. And and I was a track official, and Mike Ellis at Michigan, and he threw the discus at St. Mary's 500 years ago. Well, he threw a bad throw in the discus, and he's not taking the Lord's name in vain, but he's cursing a little bit, cussing a little bit, and all I said was when he walked by me, I said, "Mike, I don't hear very well." Okay. And I think sometimes officials, veteran officials maybe can do that. But I think, don't you get an idea of what the kids like even by warming up and stuff like that or not?
Yeah, a lot of times you can figure out pretty quick who the, I don't know, firecrackers, whatever the
Right,
word might be, that
right,
are going to be an issue. And hopefully you can sometimes get to them through a teammate or a coach, and before it gets to be a problem.
right, right. Yeah, and it's how they react to the initial comments, I think, sometimes too. Because if they blow you off, then that really can pull your trigger a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, how about coaches? How about coaches, Kevin? How far do you go with them?
I think it's a little easier with a coach because they're an adult, and I think so the
Yeah,
mindset's a little different. I feel like I can do a pretty good job with coach. I've been to a couple meetings this year where we had coaches in and talked to our officiating group, and then I was at another association meeting where a Big Ten official came in and talked about how he handles coaches and such. But
wow.
you just a lot of times coaches just want to be heard.
Yeah,
So I don't rarely ever engage start a conversation with a coach, but I certainly will respond to them. Many times they just want to be heard.
Right.
And you can say, I hear you. I don't like to get into when I'll respond. And if they say, yeah, but then, I politely kind of end it there. But I'll say, this is what happened. This is by rule. This is what it is. If it was my call, if they talk about a partner's call, there's a couple things I'll say. I never say it's not my call. Never say that, but I'll say my partner had a better look at it. Or if there's a really tough call that may have gone either way, I'll just say to the coach, he'll say something, I'll say, man, that was a tough one. And I think the coaches that have been around or whatever, that they get that. I'm not throwing my partner under the bus, but man, that was a tough call. And I'm not sure if I would have called it the same or different if I had the call. So
right. That's really good and interesting. How do you handle like say, and it's getting a little more a physical altercation with players, not you, but with two players get at it? How do you handle that?
Yeah. Well, if they're bumping in the post or whatever, I'll say a couple lines I use. I'll say, be straight. Hands, if they're putting hands on each other, I'll just say hands. And then sometimes it's hard to address during play. There's a couple things that I've done or my partners have done that have helped. If, for example, we have an inbounds play or a free throw is a good opportunity, go up to the kid and say, hey, you got to move your feet. You can't be pushing them. If you want to stay in the game, you got to help us out here. Another example is during a timeout. I've done this, like the coach will go, they'll be in their huddle or whatever, and then they're kind of breaking their huddle, and I'll go in the coach's earshot and the player will be standing or sitting there. I'll say, Coach, I need 34 to set better screens. Okay. And everybody knows that they heard it. So it cleans itself up. Hopefully, if not, then they were warned, pretty much.
That's really interesting. Okay, just a couple more questions.
Sure.
We don't have time to cover everything I wanted to. We're at 20 minutes right now, and shoot, I'm still going. Okay, well, if you're rewriting the rule book, what rule would you change or add to it?
Boy,
okay.
I think the National Federation's done a pretty good job.
No, I'm saying is there one rule that kind of jumps out with you, either to add or subtract?
This isn't a rule per se, and I mentioned this to someone else, and to me it makes sense, but I don't know why we do it. So how the basketball courts are marked now.
Yeah.
And then, years ago we moved everybody to the second spot. Yeah. On the free throws.
Yeah.
And there used to be that 18-inch block in between the first.
We moved them away from the basket once.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know why we don't have that 18-inch block between the first and second player, because now they're always tangling and on free throw rebounding. And I wish they would just adjust the courts, but that would be, one that I would like to see. But nothing else comes to mind that's I would like to see changed.
A player shoots a three, and you can't tell for sure if it was behind the line. How do you handle that one?
Well, yeah. That's what we get paid for. Get those angles. We always, games we work with, if a partner has a clear look and knows it was on the line, if it goes in, we're blowing the whistle and we're straightening it out right then.
Okay.
I suppose we miss one every once in a while if we're not in position. We call it being straight line. You don't want to be you don't want the player between you and the line. You want to be at some type of angle so you have a look at that.
Right.
Count on your partners to help you if they happen to be looking across or up and happen to see that. So that's how we.
I always just putting you on the spot with that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's finish up. And I'm Coach, I may bring you back again because I still have. So let's talk about becoming a basketball official.
Okay.
Okay, what are your suggestions on that?
Do it.
Do
It's
Sure.
different now, John. The OHSAA, you can become an official through, and it's all online now. To
I've
get your
heard that.
license, it's
I've heard
totally
that.
online. Which, for the newer generations, I kind of get that. The part we're missing is that we need to get those officials on the court. So, just
Right.
for example, this past Saturday, I was another official in our association got newer officials to come to a scrimmage and work, and we had several veteran officials kind of talking them through some things. So
That's really good.
and that's what they need. They need to get on the floor and just to have that experience. So, that's kind of the downside. I think we're getting more people taking the class. We need to retain officials at their second and third year, and that's always a sticking point. If we can get them in 3 years, I think they'll stay.
Yeah.
And there's some really good young ones, and there's a lot of good newer female officials in our area that are getting into it. So we need to do that, and hopefully coaches can help us out with that. And I was not a good player. I got cut from basketball my freshman year and became a manager. I was a basketball manager in high school and at the University of Toledo for 5 years. So you don't have to be a good athlete to be a good basketball official, and I've loved every minute of it.
We talked about Robbie Lee. Robbie Lee never played organized basketball in his life. He played, football is good, but in basketball, but he was a pretty good official.
Yeah.
I think sometimes people like you and and Robbie who have not been a player work harder to prove their value. Because they haven't played. And that's maybe subconsciously, I think they do. But I think that drives them more to be good. New officials, I know Finley's association, a lot of associations, but get junior high, get experience, and to get started and everything, and work your way up the process.
Yeah, and that's the way to do it. And people notice. If you work hard and hustle, I know we have an official in this area who started, because you can get your license in high school now, and there's several high schools that are offering as a class. In fact, Friday I'm going to Sylvania Northview to talk to their officiating class. So more schools are doing that. So hopefully we can just get more kids involved, and it's. I hate to say it. I shouldn't hate to say it, but it's kind of lucrative now. You can make some pretty good money officiating. They're getting $65 for JV games and $60 or $55 for freshman games, and
that's good.
It's
really good. Well, Kevin Katafaris, I really appreciate you being on my show.
Well, I'm glad to do it, John. And you can contact me anytime. I love doing this type of thing, and hopefully,
it's educational.
And if I can help somebody out, it's a great thing. And more power to you. And I thank you for what you do, because we need more people that just support high school athletics.
Well, plus now they know your name and face. If people are yelling at games, you make a bad call, they'll know you. They'll feel like they can yell at you and stuff, right?
But, I'm getting up there like you, John, so I don't hear them very well anymore. So maybe that's a good thing.
Your hearing's going bad, right?
Yep. The whistle in my ear for 40-some years, not helping the hearing.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
You are certainly welcome. Thanks, John.